There is a growing sense, felt quietly across nations, that the world is standing on unstable ground. It's not always spoken aloud, but it's present, in conversations that trail off, in news reports that feel heavier than usual, in the way people sense that something has shifted. Not everything that changes announces itself with noise. Some changes arrive as pressure, slow at first, subtle, almost unnoticeable, until suddenly they are impossible to ignore. What you're about to hear is not light content. It's not entertainment. It's the kind of message people usually ignore until it's too late. It challenges comfort, exposes hidden realities, and prepares the mind and spirit for what may be coming next. Now let's begin. Across the globe, tensions continue to rise. Old alliances weaken. Conflicts simmer beneath the surface. Systems once considered reliable show signs of strain. But beyond the visible political and military movements, there is another layer to what is unfolding, one that affects the human spirit as much as nations and borders. It is the growing realization that stability is not guaranteed, and that many people, including believers, may not be as prepared as they assume. War, when it comes, rarely arrives in the way people expect. It does not always begin with loud announcements or clear warnings. Often it breaks out suddenly. Communication fractures. Information becomes unreliable. Fear spreads faster than facts. And those who assume tomorrow would look like yesterday are caught off guard. Not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked preparation. What is being revealed in this moment is not merely the possibility of conflict, but the condition of those who will face it. There is a belief deeply embedded in modern society that peace is permanent, that comfort is the natural state of life, and that disruption is an exception rather than a certainty. This belief has shaped how people think, how they plan, and how they live. It has also shaped how many believers practice their faith. Faith, for many, has become routine rather than resilient, structured rather than rooted, dependent on stability rather than capable of enduring instability. When everything is calm, this difference is difficult to detect. But pressure has a way of revealing foundations. The coming season being described is not defined solely by weapons or armies. It is defined by shaking of systems, shaking of confidence, shaking of assumptions, and most importantly, shaking of faith. In times of upheaval, people instinctively look for anchors. Some look to governments, some to information, some to ideology. But when those anchors fail, the question becomes deeply personal. What remains when everything familiar is removed? One of the most concerning realities being revealed is that many who identify as believers have built their spiritual lives on external structures rather than internal strength. They rely on routines, environments, and predictability. But when those things are disrupted, their sense of security collapses. Others, however, respond differently. They are not untouched by hardship, but they are not undone by it. Their calm is not denial. Their confidence is not ignorance. It is preparation. The difference between these two responses is not background, education, or location. It is depth. When conflict intensifies, fear becomes one of the most powerful forces in the world. Fear does not need weapons. It spreads through words, images, rumors, and uncertainty. It drives people to panic, to turn against one another, to abandon reason and compassion. Fear convinces people to make decisions they would never consider in calm times. It isolates communities, it fractures trust, and it exhausts the mind. Those who are unprepared spiritually are often the first to be overwhelmed. They chase information endlessly. They consume fear without discernment. They mistake noise for truth. And slowly, anxiety replaces clarity. Prepared individuals respond differently. They do not rush to conclusions. They do not surrender their peace to every headline. They understand that chaos outside does not require chaos within. This preparedness is not accidental. It is cultivated long before crisis arrives. Another critical aspect of the coming season is deception. When pressure increases, truth becomes harder to recognize. False narratives gain power. Voices that exploit fear grow louder, and discernment becomes rare. Without discernment, people are easily manipulated. They follow the loudest voice rather than the wisest one. They react emotionally rather than thoughtfully. This is not only dangerous, it is destabilizing. Prepared believers are described as those who can pause, reflect, and respond rather than react. They are not immune to emotion, but they are not ruled by it. Their decisions are guided by conviction rather than panic. The warning being revealed is not that hardship will be avoided, but that how one enters hardship determines how one exits it. Preparation, in this context, is not about stockpiling resources or retreating from society. It is about alignment, aligning faith with reality, aligning belief with discipline, aligning trust with truth rather than comfort. It involves honest self-examination, asking difficult questions, removing distractions that weaken spiritual focus, strengthening habits that build endurance rather than convenience. Mental preparation is just as essential. Accepting that disruption is possible does not create fear, it reduces shock. Those who acknowledge reality ahead of time are far less likely to be paralyzed by it. Relational preparation matters as well. Isolation weakens individuals. Strong communities sustain them. In times of crisis, people do not survive alone. Unity becomes survival. What is striking about this message is that it does not come wrapped in despair. It carries seriousness, but also clarity. It insists that preparation is still possible, that awareness is still available, that strength can still be built. Warnings exist because time remains. Hope, in this context, is not optimism without evidence. It is confidence grounded in something deeper than circumstances. It is the assurance that even when systems fail, faith does not have to. Prepared individuals are not described as fearless, but as steady. Not untouched, but unshaken. They experience hardship, but they are not defined by it. They become sources of calm in environments driven by panic. As uncertainty continues to grow globally, this message confronts believers with a question that cannot be avoided forever. If everything changed suddenly, if routines disappeared, if systems failed, if fear spread rapidly, what would remain? Not what would you say, not what would you post, but what would you stand on internally? That question is the true heart of this message. The coming season, whenever it fully arrives, will not test intelligence as much as it tests foundations. It will not expose what people claim to believe, but what they actually rely on. And preparation, real preparation, is never built during crisis. It is built quietly, deliberately, and consistently, long before crisis demands it. These reports are not meant to frighten, but to prepare. Not to predict dates, but to strengthen foundations. And as the world grows louder and more uncertain, clarity will matter more than ever. Remain watchful,